Oh, hey there, you snuck up on me. You caught me doing two of my least favorite things. Digging holes, and we're getting ready to pour some concrete. And see how that compares to wet versus dry versus post foam, only this time we're gonna do it with wood posts. So we've dug these holes about 3 feet deep. We use a 12-inch auger, but we never wanna leave any loose soil in the bottom of the hole. If you disturb it, it comes out of the hole. To give you an idea, the depth of these holes, this mark is 42, we're right about here. Should be right at about 36 inches deep. So at the end of this, what we're gonna do is we're gonna dig these posts up, we're gonna pull them out and see if there's any difference. Now, we're probably gonna wait about a week and allow that concrete to cure, and we're gonna see what the dry concrete does after a week. Now, it's really important to notice that this soil has some moisture, but very, very little. Like, it's got just enough, if I squeeze it together, it'll kind of stick together in a dirt clod. This is fairly dry ground. We haven't had a lot of moisture, and we don't get a lot of moisture. This doesn't get irrigated or anything, so it's always dry. The last time we did the post foam and the dry pack was in the spring, and so there was a lot of runoff, a lot of water, snow, and things like that to help. So we're gonna see if it makes any difference this time, not having anything other than natural rain, which is we're starting to come into our dry season to help cure that concrete. All right, what do you say? Well, let's start mixing. My least favorite thing to do in the whole wide world. And just stab your point right into it without stabbing me. Come on, get in there. We're gonna take 2 more bags of this. These are 60-pound bags. The stiffer it is, the harder it is to mix. And the wetter it is, the poorer the quality of the concrete. We're just vibrating this really good. That last batch was probably a little drier than maybe you want it. It'll be fine though. What you will notice, we use a 12-inch auger, but what we have is on these corners, if we use a really small auger, let's say we use an 8-inch auger, we're gonna have no strength right here on the corner because it's only gonna come to right about there. And then that's where this will break out. So if we had a small hole, we would have almost no strength right here in the corners. So that's why we use a 12-inch auger. The other thing you want to take into account for is if your auger moves when you're drilling these holes. If it moves even a little bit with a really small tight hole, you're never going to get that post in the right spot. So we'd rather buy a little bit of extra concrete for making sure we have good footings if we're going to use this method versus saving a little bit of money on the concrete and then having to spend a bunch of time and labor moving holes later on after we've hit really rocky ground and it moves. Awesome, you can just set those right there by that hole. Okay. Today, we're gonna do a bonus because I have a very special post that we've set up for that 4th hole because we're gonna have wet concrete, dry concrete, post foam, and you're probably thinking, what's that one for? Well, it's for our special post. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. Okay, next. You can start off with your big end, but if you're gonna dry pack, eventually we're gonna use this end and that'll give us a lot better compaction. If we're gonna throw it in there dry, it's gotta be compact. If you don't pack it, you will make very, very weak concrete. Not to mention, this post will wanna move all over the place for quite some time probably in this dry climate. So once we get the bottom packed, you wanna check the level, then we'll just go around, we'll stab this in, and that helps recompact it even better. Okay, epic. We'll cover all these with dirt. Oh, we didn't check this post. Is it plumb? Nope. Okay, if you take nothing away from this video at all, please take this away. This is your bonus tip. Now this post is not plumb here, just so you can see, we're way over the line. We need to move this post this way a lot to get it plumb. Now, what I see everybody doing in all these videos with these DIYers doing their own fence, the next thing they're gonna do is they're gonna go over here and they're gonna get their 2x4s. And they're gonna put 2x4s all the way around this post. They're gonna stake it off and get this thing all nice and plumb, and then they're gonna wait for the concrete to cure right here. Well, let me just show you why that's not necessary. So we need to get this post plumb. We just barely poured it. We're out of plumb, as we've shown you. So I'm gonna push on this post as hard as I possibly can right now, and I'm still not even plumb right now. So I gotta go some more. Tamp that with your big end. Okay, that's good. So we're plumb both ways right now, and you saw how much work I had to put in to get that post to move. Trust me, whatever wind you have is not moving that post. It takes a lot of pressure, and as dry as this mix is, unless you mix it as soup, it's very, very quickly gonna set up because it has very fine aggregate. So we've got this thing plumbed up, and when we come back to pull this, we'll see if it's still straight, because I guarantee you I am not using any 2x4s to brace this. We have done 40-foot tall fences and never braced a single post. Stop doing that. If you're doing that or considering doing that, if you see your contractor using bracing like that, that is your first sign that you've hired somebody that doesn't have a clue what they're doing, and you should be worried and really watch what they're doing from that point forward. Okay, so now this is the special post. There's two different things about this post that make it special. We decided that since we saw a video about the benefits of adding screws to the bottom of our post in the concrete, I would do the same. So I have added screws. I think maybe he only had 6 or so in there. I'm thinking, you know, if 6 is good, this many is better. So you're welcome. We're gonna dry pack this or wet set it? I say we put it in there dry and see if the screws help hold the concrete together better as it's dry. It's gonna be very tough to dry pack though, because I'm gonna be fighting these, the walls. This post hole is a lot smaller, so we only used a 9-inch auger to drill this one. And as you will see, as we put this thing in here, there's not a whole lot of room. And this is what I'm talking about. On the corners, we don't have a lot of concrete. Now, this may be acceptable, this may turn out, but we're gonna go ahead and put this in here dry, which will also tell us whether or not compacting the concrete matters at all, because guess what? We're not gonna compact it. I really can't without bending all my screws, and I have such a tight hole. But you can see, if my hole was off at all, I would have a hard time getting that in line because I've got no room, especially with these screws in it, just making it worse. Now, mind you, this other post took 5 bags. This one will probably only take 2, maybe 2.5, because we used a really small hole. Ooh, that sounds like Plinko. That really sounds like Plinko. That brings me back to my Bob Barker days. So this hole, smaller, less concrete, but we have screws, but we can't tamp it. It'll be really interesting to see how this one turns out. You can tamp the top probably. The cool thing is we'll be digging these up so we can see exactly what it looked like as it sat in its natural habitat that we made for it. So it's been a couple days, and now we have our foam, and what we're going to use today is the Sitka Post Flex. This thing, I think they say someplace it replaces like 2 bags of concrete, so I kind of expect we're going to have to use 2, maybe even a part of a third to fill this hole all the way up. We will find out here in just a second. Burst the seal. I think you roll it up. Caution, caution, caution. Step 1. Get your safety stuff. Yes, check. Roll, check. And try and get all that goodness from the bottom into the top. Then I think we're supposed to do this for 15 seconds. That feels about right, right? If we don't do it soon enough, I guess it'll start blowing up in our bag. Ew. I can tell you it does get warm. It is what they call an exothermic reaction. Now here's the part I really don't particularly love. Until it starts setting up, it's just all whoppity floppity. This may be the only case you may have to use the old bracing method that we showed you and cursed about so many times. I don't want to move it too much as it's setting up. We want to try and keep it fairly consistent. I would compare this to setting up hydraulic cement when we do our core drill stuff. And we have some other methods so we don't actually screw it. What I would do is I'd probably just take 2 truss rods and bend them so they come right over the top, because we just need a little bit of holding power here. It's already starting to get a little stiffer than it was in the beginning. After we set this, I'm going to show you something you might not believe, but you'll see it with your own eyes for real. It's definitely expanding. It's getting firmer, but still not firm. Do another bag, just because. And now I've done it once, so I'm really good at it. I know the rules, I know the whole situation. The other part is you're gonna have to have your posts set to height, or you're gonna have to cut them off. Trying to pull them up and float them in the foam, probably not something you'll be able to do like you can with concrete. Not setting any records getting stiff at all. Like, it's still wobbly. So while we wait for this thing to set up, I will tell you that we have used this exactly one time. One time we have used post foam on a project. It was a project up on a mountain. Could not get concrete to it, couldn't get water to it. It was pack everything on whatever you can take on your back, so we're not gonna pack yards and yards of concrete. And that's when we went to the foam. And it worked very well for that particular situation. It wasn't a full fence, it was more of a cable barrier. They say at the top here, you just trim that off. I guess if you're gonna do a bunch of this, maybe having a hot knife would be good. because a hot knife would cut right through this. It's starting to firm up, like I can feel resistance, but it's very, very sticky. The good news is it does not take that long, I guess. What are we, 5 minutes into this maybe? Yeah, I think we're pretty good. It can hold itself now. We're gonna let it hold itself. Why don't you come over here and I'll show you something. This is a power pole. This is not a fence post. They set this power pole about 2 years ago, maybe actually longer. It's probably been more like 4 years since they set that. And if you'll look right down here at what they used to set that, post foam. I'm gonna just let you know, this post hasn't blown over and I can't push it over. All the ground is different. This is, again, very, very rocky. So you get down about 18 inches and then it's nothing but solid sand and gravel all the way down. You know, river cobble. If you look at where we dug the post holes in rocky ground, there's a video right over here for that. This is right across the road from that. So very, very rocky ground, about 2 feet down. I think that they just decided that it would be easier for them to backfill this giant hole, because they usually get pretty big, with foam than it would be to try and tamp it, because they know they can't get down in there. I think they drill these about 7 or 8 feet. All their poles that they're setting now are done with the foams. They're using 5-gallon buckets of it, but likely made by one of these big suppliers, just like the stuff we're using in our posts. So yeah, if you want a practical application, not fencing where foam is used, right here. And where we're doing this testing, right there. It's very sticky still. Still wobbly. We'll see if it gets a little harder. It's still very, very sticky. I don't want to put my finger in that. So we'll let this thing finish curing, and then in a couple days, when it's actually 7 days on all these posts, then we will come back and dig them up and show you what it looks like. Many days later, at least 7 days later, so this has had a 7-day cure time. And luckily for us, we did get a thunderstorm the other day that dropped a little bit of rain. Probably didn't make it all the way to the bottom of the hole, but maybe we'll see a difference in the top part of the concrete on the dry pack versus the bottom. I don't know, we'll see. But before we do that, I want to just kind of make sure they're in there tight. So I'm gonna pull this way. But I mean, it feels solid. This one actually feels solid too. Like, I feel like I could snap the post off before the foam gave away. It's actually pretty stout. This one is dry packed as well. I mean, I'm seeing flex in the post, but I'm not really seeing the ground move. And I really don't have any concerns about wet set concrete working. Hopefully we can all agree that works. Oh no, this isn't good. This isn't good at all. This is the top. This is not dry pack. This is just throw it in there dry and let's see what happens. We did not pack it. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. It felt solid, it did. I think it got hard-ish, but obviously we can't even push the post over without issues. I'm gonna be a lot more careful when I do the next one. We can see that some moisture got in there and made it kind of hard, but it's, in our climate, this probably needs more time. Even with the thunderstorm we got the other day, it's not enough water. And without enough water, those nails or screws didn't seem to do anything. We might have to try that again later. Oh yeah, there we go. That's it. Oh, hang on, man. I've been working out. I don't think it's gonna break off. It was very well bonded to the ground. I did not see any cracks anywhere around it. The dirt was molded. I mean, you can see it's still completely molded to this post. See zero issues with that whatsoever. So what I will say about the post foam is the fact that it is expensive. Roughly $19 per bag, so we used up $38 worth of post foam. Conversely, on the posts that we set in concrete, we used up about 4 to 5 bags, and they're about $4 a bag at our local store for a 60-pound bag. And so that same concrete cost us roughly $20. So roughly half the price, but we didn't have to mix anything. We didn't have to carry anything. So much more expensive way to set posts. You're welcome. Yeah, I hate to say it. This stuff is not even remotely set up top here. Yeah, this isn't gonna work. That's with a rainstorm. But what I can tell you is we did pack this in here, so this is dry pack. The only thing we did is instead of using dirt, we used concrete, which cost us more money. If we were just gonna pack this in here and it stayed dry forever, we're better off using dirt or soil because it's not gonna rot as fast. Man, I don't know what to say about this other than, I mean, it was in there solid. I'm sure it would set up over time. It's just, I have no idea when it would set up. But it was solid. I could pull on it and it felt just like all the rest of them. In the last test, we gave it probably a month and it was spring. So we had a lot more moisture in the ground and then we had a lot more moisture coming down. I guess that's just as a warning. If you're gonna try this in a sprinkled yard, it's probably not gonna be an issue. But if you're out in the middle of nowhere and you're in a dry climate like we are, it's gonna take a while to set up. This is after 7 days, it's still powder. And you can see there's moisture in the ground, but it didn't suck any of that out. See, it feels like right there, there's some that hardened at the very bottom of the hole. Maybe where there was more moisture, I'm not sure. Don't worry, this post is good for another day. Okay, last one. Hopefully this one's set up. I really feel like I'd snap this post off if I tried too hard. Yeah, it's cracking, like it has no flexibility. And that's one of the advantages of the Trident post is that you have that flexibility. It may not seem like it's stronger, but believe me, there's a huge advantages to it. So here's your bonus tip right here. You see how uniform the rest of the hole is, and then we get to the top and it's all blown out. This is one of the reasons that we suggest that you leave your concrete down, is because if you live in a frost environment, this is a huge lever for that frost to be forcing those posts out of the ground when you get frost heave. It's almost impossible to drill a hole and not have it kind of conical at the very top. We prefer to leave the concrete down a little bit and help alleviate some of that problem, and then that frost locks that post in. So if you're an engineer watching this and you're advocating for people doming concrete, please stop, it does no good. This is the part where you want me to bust this concrete off, huh? I don't really want to, I'm not gonna lie. I feel like this is how many licks to the center of a Tootsie Pop kind of thing here. Only the end will be way less satisfying. I mean, I don't know what else you want to see. It held up good. With more cure time, this would get even stronger. It probably hasn't reached its max cure time yet. 28-day cure strength. So the one interesting thing that we noticed is that you're able to see the line right here where we separated our two pores. Believe it or not, I can see it right here, quite plain as day. Did not bond together, even though we poured it at the same time, really. It did what we thought it was gonna do. You know we're all about bonus content, so as promised, what I want to do now is I want to show you our absolute favorite way to put posts in the ground using our absolute favorite post. We're going to use the Rhino Multi-Pro XA. Ooh, that thing is spicy hot. XA means it has an extended anvil. It sticks down in this slot, and the slot is what's going to accept our channel post. Big benefits to doing this are, number one, it's incredibly strong. We have videos all over the internet. For more information on that, check out this video here where we use Trident posts and a airboat to simulate a hurricane and see how strong these things really are. The nice thing again is it's an engineered product. They're always going to be perfect. They're never going to warp, crack, chip, rust. Okay, well, they could rust. I mean, let's be real. But it's going to take a very, very long time. And because of the galvanization, it holds up good in all climates, especially our dry, arid climate. But we use these things all day, every day in Florida as well, and have had great success. Oh, you know what? The other benefits? There's no dirt mess in our lawn when we're done. So if there's no mess in my lawn, it means I don't have to clean up a mess. I don't have to haul a mess. I don't have to carry concrete. I don't have to worry about whether or not I'm going to do it dry or wet. I don't have concrete dust that I'm breathing in. Huge plus. So that's 30 inches. This must be a 8-foot post, so we have 30 inches in, 5.5 feet out, and it took us under 2 minutes to do that. It's ready to go. I'm gonna just leave it at 30 inches. We could go deeper. We could go to 36 inches. We could go to 48 inches if we wanted. Probably here, we're not gonna get 48. We can easily get 36, just because, as mentioned, we have all this rock underneath the ground. But you can also see I can do all this stuff by myself if I'm very thoughtful about the way I go about it. I don't need any other help. I can do all this on my own. That's a big benefit. Now we've got a post that's in here nice and strong, and I guarantee you I would bend this post over well before the ground failed on me. As mentioned before, the only reason we use concrete is because we need a fill that's going to get hard, and it needs to be just as hard as the ground around it. So if we don't disturb the soil and we keep the ground hard, then we don't need to have that heavy weighted concrete for the additional strength. The surface area of the post is enough to keep that in place, and we have so many years of testing on this, it's not even funny. So before you write your comment down below telling me how this doesn't work, it absolutely does. places it doesn't work, especially with this driver, if you have a lot of rock. As you noticed, we have quite a bit of rock under the ground, but the first couple feet is really good. If it was like that all the way down, we would probably skip this, but we have that clay layer, that 2-foot clay layer above, that allows the post to stay put while we drive it, and then it kind of holds that post right where we want it so it can bust through the rocks. Again, if those rocks were at the top, we'd have a very difficult time, and I probably would not try this. That's a place where digging and excavating the dirt and refilling it with concrete is probably better. This post is very hot, very hot. You know, to be fair, we should probably try and pull this thing out. So I'm gonna guess that probably took about 1,000 pounds, 1,500 pounds of pull to get that thing out of the ground. One of the things people don't understand is if I was to drive a 2 3/8 pipe into the ground and it's all smooth and it's all round, that takes a lot less friction. But something like this, you'll notice that you get all that compaction down inside the post, and we have all that friction on every single square inch of this post, allowing it to really grab into that ground. Not that we have reverse gravity. We don't have a whole lot of forces pulling up on our fences. It's usually laterally that we're gonna have forces or in line with the fence. But this just shows how hard those things go on the ground if you have good solid clay. Obviously, if you have softer ground, you're gonna wanna go deeper. If you have frost, you may wanna go deeper still to get below the frost layer. Although it is not as critical to get below the frost layer as it is with concrete, because there's less surface area for that frost to grab onto and shove that post out. It is not as affected by frost as concrete is. Now you might be asking yourself, can I rent one of these drivers? Highly unlikely. We get that question all the time, but most people only have drivers that don't have that extended anvil we talked about, so they can't drive the channel post. Not to mention they're probably not gonna have the channel post adapter. Another thing people ask us is can I use your channel post adapter on some other driver? No, you cannot. They are very brand specific. You need to buy the right adapter for the type of driver that you're renting. Some Rhinos are available at the rental store, but most of those don't have that channel post adapter, and they don't have the ability to drive the channel post because of that extended anvil. So check around. You may find one at your local rental store, but there's no guarantees. If you're a professional looking for one, we sell those, and there's a link right down here. And if you're looking for the Trident posts, those are also available in a link down below. And that link down below, that's like in the description. You need to click on the description of the video, and then there will be a whole bunch of links down there. You'll see it, and click on that, and that'll take you to the site where you can purchase all this stuff.